The sun had barely started painting the walls in soft gold when I heard the faint clink of a cup on the kitchen counter. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee curled around me like a warm hug, wrapping me in the familiarity of our mornings. I hadn't opened my eyes yet, still tangled in the sheets, when I felt his presence behind me. "My love," he whispered, his voice low and smooth. "Coffee's ready." I blinked, trying to focus on him. The morning light caught his hair just so, the strands like spun silk, and for a moment the world felt perfectly ordinary, safe, predictable. He held the cup out to me, his hand brushing against mine. The warmth seeped through my skin, a comfort I hadn't realized I was craving. "And in an hour," he added, leaning close, his lips brushing my ear as he whispered, "you won't even remember your own name." I laughed softly, pulling back to meet his gaze. It was the kind of laugh I usually reserved for our private jokes, the ones no one else could understand. "You're ridiculous," I said, shaking my head, though a strange shiver ran down my spine. The words sounded playful, but the undertone, I couldn't place it. There was something in the way he said it, the faint, almost imperceptible curl at the edge of his smile, that made my stomach tighten. He kissed my forehead and walked away, humming a tune I didn't recognize. I watched him go, feeling the warmth of the coffee in my hands, letting the aroma fill my senses. The first sip was heavenly, rich, smooth, and faintly sweet. It should have been comforting. It should have felt like home. But beneath the taste, beneath the steam that fogged the morning light, I felt a flicker of unease, a small whisper that something was off. I shook it away, telling myself it was just nerves, just the way mornings sometimes felt too quiet. After all, we had been married for years. I knew him, or at least I thought I did. And yet, this morning, there was a distance in his gaze, a precision in his movements that made the space between us feel larger than it should. I went about my routine, mechanically brushing my hair, folding the blanket that had slipped from the bed, humming softly to myself. Each action felt slightly hazy, like I was moving through a dream. I paused, staring at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. My eyes looked tired, but it wasn't exhaustion. Something else, something unplaceable, flickered there. A memory of last night, or maybe the night before, slipped through my mind like sand through fingers, and I couldn't grasp it. Shaking my head, I went back to the kitchen. The cup sat there, empty now, but the faint scent lingered. He was at the counter, reading something on his tablet, completely absorbed, yet aware of every small sound I made. I wanted to ask him about the whisper, the words that had made my heart stutter, but they already felt distant, like echoes fading too quickly. Instead, I smiled at him. He looked up, returning the smile that I had learned to trust over the years. The warmth in his eyes was familiar, but I couldn't shake the feeling that behind it was something deliberate, something carefully concealed. He moved like a shadow through the sunlight, graceful and quiet, but I sensed the weight behind each step. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice soft, laced with concern that felt genuine, yet tinged with something else. "Yes," I replied quickly. "Just sleepy, I guess." He nodded, his fingers brushing mine again as he passed by. A shiver ran through me, not from cold, but from the strange awareness that the morning, so ordinary and safe, had shifted. Something subtle, something irreversible, had changed. I sat at the table, staring at the steam that still curled from the cup, and tried to remember exactly what he had whispered. It was gone, just beyond the edges of my memory. My heart picked up pace as a small panic rose within me. What had he meant, and why did I feel strangely afraid, yet unable to articulate it? For the first time that morning, I wondered if I had ever truly known him, or if this golden morning was just a carefully painted mask hiding a deeper, darker truth. The next morning, I woke to a faint ache behind my eyes, as if sleep had been both too deep and too shallow at the same time. I rubbed my temples, trying to remember why I felt so unsteady, but the memory eluded me. The kitchen smelled faintly of coffee again. though no cup had yet been poured. I frowned, glancing at the counter, and noticed a small note folded neatly beside my mug. "Don't rush today, love. Let the morning come to you." His handwriting was familiar, elegant in a way that always made my heart skip, but the words themselves carried a subtle weight that made me uneasy. I held the note, turning it over in my fingers, and realized I couldn't remember the last time he had left me a note like this. Or if he had, my mind felt foggy, as if someone had shaken it gently and scattered pieces of it across the floor. I drank the coffee he had prepared, letting it warm me, and tried to push the strange feelings aside. Yet even as the liquid slid down my throat, a faint nausea rose in its wake, subtle but insistent. I stared at the steam, watching it curl in the morning light, and suddenly felt a pang of fear. Something was changing, something in me. By mid-morning, small things began slipping. I misplaced my keys, not for the first time, but this felt different. Familiar objects appeared strange, their purpose vague, as if my mind was slowly unthreading its own memories. I wandered the house, finding clothes folded oddly, a book I knew I had never borrowed placed neatly on the counter. Each discovery left me more disoriented, more unsure of what was real. He watched me, always watched. He hovered in the background, a silent observer, his presence at once comforting and suffocating. Whenever I met his eyes, he smiled, warm and tender, yet something beneath that surface made my skin prickle. I wanted to confront him, to ask him if he was the cause of this, but every time I opened my mouth, the words failed me. I found myself standing in front of the mirror, staring at my own reflection. My features were mine, yet the eyes looking back seemed foreign, uncertain. I tried to recall the conversation we had just yesterday, or had it been last week, but the memory slipped through my fingers. My heart thumped violently as panic began to rise. If I couldn't trust my own mind, what could I trust? He approached then, quiet as a shadow. He didn't touch me, didn't speak at first, only watched me fumble with the reflection in the glass. "You're okay," he murmured softly, his voice wrapping around me like a warm scarf. "Everything's fine. Just take your time." I wanted to scream at him, to demand answers, but the words were gone again, evaporated like mist. My mind was retreating into itself, fragile and hesitant. Yet somewhere, deep down, a spark of suspicion began to ignite. It whispered that the warmth in his voice was a mask, a careful facade, and that beneath it lay something calculated, something cruel. The day passed in a blur. I misplaced things constantly, forgetting where I had been or what I had intended to do. He moved around me with the grace of someone who knows the rules of a game I had never learned. Every glance, every gesture of his felt deliberate, as if he were measuring my every reaction. And with each passing hour, I felt a creeping, gnawing fear. He was not the man I thought I knew. By evening, my confusion had deepened into dread. I tried to write down what I remembered of the day, but the words felt alien on the page, as if they had been written by someone else. My hands shook. The warm light of the setting sun spilled across the kitchen table, painting it in gold and shadows, and I realized with a chill that I didn't remember why I had loved him, though I knew that I had. He knelt beside me then, his hand brushing mine, the familiar warmth of him at once soothing and terrifying. "Sleep now," he whispered, "and let it fade. Tomorrow will be brighter." I wanted to resist, to demand answers, but exhaustion weighed me down. The fog in my mind thickened, and I felt myself slipping into a fragile, hazy surrender. Yet, even in that surrender, a single thought refused to go away, flickering like a candle in the wind. He is doing this. He is the cause, and someday, I will make him pay. As I closed my eyes, the shadows of the day stretched long across the walls, and I realized that the person I had been, The person who had trusted him completely was already fading. And in that fading, a quiet, simmering fire began to grow. By the third morning, the fog in my mind had shifted. It no longer felt like a gentle haze that blurred the edges of memory. It had become sharper, a dim awareness piercing through the confusion. I remembered fragments now, not whole days, not complete conversations, but flashes of odd moments. The way he had lingered near my bed that first morning, the subtle glint in his eye as he whispered words that should have made me laugh. Something was deliberate, calculated. I kept my thoughts to myself, pretending still to stumble through the day as if the coffee's effects were real, as if my own mind truly was betraying me. But inside, a storm was forming, anger and fear intertwined, feeding one another. Every misplaced object, every forgotten word, every stolen memory now became a clue, a breadcrumb trail leading me to a single, bitter truth. He had done this. My own husband, the man I had loved, the man I had trusted more than anyone, had poisoned me, not with a knife, not with anger, but with subtlety, with careful, intimate cruelty. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the remnants of the coffee cup from the day before. The aroma still lingered faintly, and my stomach twisted. I traced the rim of the cup with my finger, feeling the warmth that had once comforted me now like a mockery. How could someone I loved so completely betray me in such a personal, quiet way? I remembered the whisper, "In an hour you won't even remember your own name." At first I had laughed. Now, the memory sent a chill straight through my spine. He had smiled as he said it, as if he already knew the power he held, as if he were certain of my submission. And he had been right, at least for a time. I had felt myself slipping, losing pieces of who I was. But that mistake, underestimating me, would be his undoing. I started small, testing myself, trying to see how much I could remember, how much clarity I still possessed. Names, dates, memories of our past, all flickered uncertainly but persisted, stubborn fragments refusing to vanish. I realized that even if he thought he could erase me, I had enough of myself left to fight back, quietly, deliberately. And fight I would. I began planning, slowly, meticulously. I could not confront him yet. He would see through that too easily. No, I needed patience. I needed strategy. Each day, I would appear weaker, more confused, more fragile than I truly was. I would let him believe the coffee and his careful manipulations were succeeding. But beneath the surface, my mind was sharpening, growing sharper and more focused with each small act of deception. And while my rage burned, I began collecting evidence, not evidence for anyone else, but for myself, a record of the cruelty I had endured. Notes, slips of paper, tiny observations recorded in the margins of a notebook he had never noticed. I catalogued his actions, the way he watched me, the way he moved through the house with quiet precision, the way he spoke softly when I tried to confront him. Each detail fueled my resolve, feeding the fire that had begun to grow in my chest. It was a strange feeling, love intertwined with hate, longing intertwined with fury. I remembered the man I had fallen for, and I mourned him even as I plotted. The memory of his kindness, his warmth, the comfort of his hand in mine. It all made the betrayal sting more deeply. And yet it made the thought of revenge sweeter, more poetic. He would remember what he had taken from me. He would feel the same confusion, the same helplessness I had endured, but he would not survive it unscathed. That evening he approached me again, placing a cup of coffee before me with that same soft smile. "How are you feeling?" he asked, voice like honey laced with steel. I smiled back, fragile and uncertain, letting him believe he had succeeded. "Better," I murmured, voice soft, almost trembling. And inside I laughed, not with joy, not with relief, but with the quiet, simmering satisfaction of a storm gathering in secret. He thought he had broken me, he thought he had erased me, but he had only awakened something he could never control. And when the time came, he would see just how dangerous the woman he had underestimated could be. The days that followed were a careful dance. He still hovered, still whispered, still moved through the house as though I were fragile porcelain, each step measured. But I no longer stumbled, no longer faltered. Every glance I gave him, every sigh I let escape my lips was calculated. I played the part he expected, fragile, confused, obedient, but beneath the mask I was planning, waiting, sharpening my mind as one sharpens a knife. He never noticed. How could he? He had spent months convincing himself that I was slipping, that the woman he had once loved was gone. And in his arrogance, he began to take risks. He let the coffee sit longer, whispered more often, tested the boundaries of my weakness. He believed he was untouchable. He believed I was powerless. The first move in my revenge came quietly. A simple thing, a note left for him in his own handwriting from one of his careless slips, duplicated exactly in my hand. It read, "All is going according to plan." I left it where he would find it, watching from the shadows as his brow furrowed. The confusion in his eyes was delicious, a crack in the mask of control he wore. I smiled to myself, savoring the way panic had finally touched him, however briefly. He had underestimated me. He had underestimated the fire that still burned beneath my fading edges. And now the game had shifted. The next step required patience. I studied his habits, memorized every movement, every small ritual. How he poured the coffee, how he leaned when he whispered, how he believed that proximity was safety. I began slipping subtle truths into our conversations, carefully crafted suggestions that made him doubt his own mind. One misplaced cup here, one forgotten word there small, almost invisible, but enough to make him question reality. He began to tremble not physically, but in the slow, insidious way of someone who realizes their control is slipping. His eyes darted more often. He hesitated in the kitchen before speaking. Every whisper he directed at me now carried a weight of uncertainty. He was afraid, though he would never admit it, and I, the woman he thought was broken, had become the architect of that fear. The climax came one evening, as the golden light of sunset spilled across the living room. He approached me with the same gentle smile, the same soft cup of coffee, the same words. "In an hour, you won't even remember your own name." I took the cup, cradling it like a fragile trophy, and smiled. A real smile this time, sharp and knowing. "You're wrong," I said softly. "I remember everything, every lie, every betrayal, every cruel whisper." His face tightened, confusion flickering across his features. He opened his mouth, but no words came. I set the cup down on the table, leaving it untouched, the steam rising like the ghosts of our past. "Do you remember this?" I asked, tracing the rim with a finger. "This coffee, this morning ritual you thought was your power over me." He stepped back, unease creeping into his movements. I cut him off, voice steady now, calm yet charged with the fury I had held in check for weeks. "You wanted me to forget. You wanted me to disappear, but I'm still here, and now you will remember. Oh, you will remember the pain of what you did to me." The subtle revenge I had crafted took its final shape, not with violence, not with anger, but with the power of truth and emotional precision. I recounted every manipulation, every whispered threat, every stolen memory. I spoke with clarity, with passion, forcing him to see himself through my eyes. The man who had tried to erase me now experienced the terror, the helplessness, the deep, aching betrayal that he had inflicted. He faltered, staggered, his arrogance crumbling as he realized the depth of his mistake. The fear in his eyes mirrored the fear I had once felt, and it was intoxicating, sweet, and complete. When I finished, the room was silent. The coffee sat between us, untouched, a symbol of the poison he had served. I walked past him, brushing his shoulder lightly, not in affection but in triumph. I didn't need to shout, didn't need to strike. The lesson had been delivered. He would remember me, the real me, and he would remember the cost of underestimating a woman scorned. I stepped outside, feeling the cool evening air on my face. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the world in colors of gold and blood, red. I was stronger now, scarred yet unbroken, wiser and sharper than I had been. The betrayal had not destroyed me, it had awakened me. And as I walked into the night, leaving the shadows and the man who tried to erase me behind, I smiled. Sweet revenge was not in breaking him physically. It was in reclaiming myself, in letting him feel, finally, the weight of what he had done. That was power, that was justice, that was mine.